As we keep an eye on politics this morning, it's become almost impossible for many people to talk about political differences in these very polarized times. But figuring out how to do that is the focus of a summit this week in Chicago. It's being put on by the Obama Foundation, and its CEO and longtime senior advisor to former President Barack Obama, Valerie Jarrett, joins us now to talk about this. Good morning, Valerie. Thanks so much for being with us.
Good morning, Dana. It's always a pleasure to be on.
The Foundation's Democracy Forum is tomorrow with a focus on the importance of pluralism. Isn't that just another way to say the need for all parties to work together, and why is that important?
Well, that's one of the backbones of a democracy, and in our richly diverse country that we know is experiencing polarization right now, and that's rippling around the world. We want to give people the tools to have those hard conversations, to disagree without being disagreeable, to be respectful and appreciate people's perspectives, which, Dana, means we have to learn to listen better, we have to be more empathetic, and we have to have the tools that allow us to have hard conversations. And those conversations may be with your grumpy uncle at a holiday dinner, it may be with a colleague at work, it may be elected officials. And so there are strategies that are available, and I think there's a hunger for this, particularly right now. And so we're so excited to be hosting this here in our hometown of Chicago tomorrow. We'll have about 650 people present, and then countless people tuning in from around the world.
You know, you say there's a hunger for this, and I think that is so true in so many cases, but some may say, my goodness, when you listen to the rhetoric coming out of Washington, D.C. or national politics, maybe there isn't a hunger because the bipartisan divide is so intense right now. So how do you get this message out to the masses beyond those who will be tuning in tomorrow?
Well, that's exactly what we want to do, is to give the leaders who are coming tomorrow, and these are leaders from around the world and around our country, the tools that they need to focus on the future. One of the reasons why I love being the CEO of the Obama Foundation is that we really are taking the long view. We're looking at building the leaders of tomorrow who will help address the challenges that we have. And so developing that from the ground up, giving those leaders the tools that they need to go forth and figure out how to have these difficult conversations, to focus, Dana, on so much that we have in common. And that's how we begin to bridge the differences. And so those are the tools that will be available. They'll be available online for those of you who can't make it down to the actual conference.
And there was a lot more of that, 30, 40 years ago, parties working together and compromising, not as much in the last 20 years or so. However, there isn't going to be a lot of pluralism, if you will, on Capitol Hill come January, with Republicans in the executive branch controlling Congress. Many Dems say that the party needs a reboot, the Democratic Party. What do you think the Democratic Party has to do to win back maybe disenfranchised voters?
Well, when I worked in the White House, that question, Dana, would be fair game. There are plenty of political pundits that can weigh in on that. But my role now at the Obama Foundation isn't to focus on politics. It's to focus on how do we help people strengthen their communities. And I find that incredibly rewarding at this chapter of my life.
What do you think? Do you have any thoughts on what has caused this polarization in the last, couple of decades in particular?
It's an interesting question. I remember when I started out in politics in Chicago, working for Mayor Washington, and you'll remember that there was all this vitriol on the council floor. But then if you went back behind the council, you'd hear the mayor asking people how their families were and what was going on in their lives. And there wasn't this degree of polarization. There was politics and there was fervent disagreement, but there were relationships that were being built. And I think we've lost sight of that. And I do think that most American people want their elected representatives to be working on their behalf, and we've gotten away from that. And so part of what we want to do is to help just ordinary people as well as leaders in the community rebuild that muscle of how we work together, how we listen, how we don't look for our differences and try to polarize ourselves, but rather come together. And that's what strengthens our democracy.
Okay, and Valerie, I would be remiss, since I have you here, and not asking you this question. And it has to do with the latest controversy coming out of the Oval Office, and that is President Joe Biden, who of course was vice president under President Obama, his pardoning of his son after saying he wouldn't do that. He's getting criticism on both sides of the aisle for this. Do you have any thoughts on that?
I am not here to be the pundit on that. There are plenty of people, Dana, as I said earlier, who comment on the politics of the day. My role as the head of this foundation is to focus on helping people come together tomorrow and the day after and the day after that.
All right. Well, I appreciate that, and I hope that tomorrow's forum is a success, because I really believe it's a really important conversation that we all need to have, all members of all parties right now.
Exactly.
All right. Valerie Jarrett, thanks so much for joining us this morning. We really appreciate it, and we will be right back.